You're listening to the Kitchen Confession Podcast with Chef Mary Mamalidi.
The whole thing about Two Spoons is that when you're eating plant-based, when you're incorporating more plants into your diet, you don't have to compromise on taste. It came from the idea that it's recipes worth sharing. Something that happens to me quite a bit when I go to a restaurant and you've decided to order a dessert, but your friend or your husband has passed on it. And when it's a dessert that's really, really good, they always bring 2 spoons because they know that the other person is going to be digging into your dessert.
That's Hannah Sunderani. She's a plant-based blogger and creator of Two Spoons. Welcome, Hannah, and thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am so excited to have you here. I've followed you for quite some time.
Oh, that's so nice.
But for the people that don't know your story, your journey, you are a fellow Torontonian, currently living abroad in France.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where in France you're calling from, just a little bit about Hannah.
Okay, sure. So my name is Hannah. And as you know, I am from Toronto, but I've been living in France for the past 3.5, almost 4 years. We actually decided to come here for my husband's work, but it's been great for me because it was actually kind of the step that I needed in order to start my blog. So that's something that I began when I moved here. So it's been just a beautiful experience. It's been major learning curves for me, both personally and professionally. When I first moved here, I didn't speak much French apart from the French that we learn in high school. And so I really felt quite a bit out of my element, kind of immersing myself into a different culture. But now I feel very comfortable here, and it's just been a lovely, lovely way of life.
That is such a brave move.
Oh, thanks.
Honestly, I mean, when you think about it, you know a little bit about the language, you're kind of jumping in.
Yeah.
Which I love that.
I'll have to admit, it was not easy at first. I would say it took me a good 6 months to almost a year to get really, really comfortable here. So if anyone is ever, thinking that like moving abroad maybe isn't for them after the first couple months, it is totally normal to feel out of your element. It's a huge learning curve and it takes time. So
oh, I'm sure. And I always wondered, I mean, I know what the blogging scene is like in Canada, but what's it like in France?
It's actually not as big. It's sort of making its way here. There are a lot of opportunities actually in Paris, which isn't too far from where I live. I live in Lille, France, which is about 50 minutes by train to get into Paris. So it's nice because I get a lot of opportunities there. And I've been approached by a few French companies to help work with their marketing materials and just promoting their brands. But it's more slow going than Canada for sure.
Okay, I need to ask this. Let me live vicariously through you. Paint me a picture of what it's like living a day in France.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so first of all, the weather is so much better in terms of the cold. I mean, it's so funny. I'm Canadian and I probably there's no one who can't stand the cold as much as me. So moving here has been a godsend because in the winter, you're looking at 8 to 10 degrees. Mm-hmm. So that's really nice.
Wait a minute. That's the winter, 8 to 10.
Yes.
That's fantastic. We're in shorts in 8 to 10.
I know. And then our summer basically started about 4 weeks ago. So we've been having beautiful weather and 25 degrees for a month. So it's just it's a lot more temperate. But in terms of the day-to-day life, it's just I have to admit, it's very much what you would imagine it to be. It's very quintessential French. Everyone here speaks French. You don't run into a ton of people who are English speaking, and I think that's because I'm not in Paris. I'm in a city, but it's not a major big city. Mm-hmm. So you really feel you're kind of consumed in this French culture, and everywhere you walk, there's boulangeries on every corner. It's like the Tim Hortons.
No.
Yeah, and people are riding their bikes and picking up bread and taking walks in the park, and it's just a very community-based place.
Is it the baguette that's underneath the arm as they ride by?
Yes.
It is? Totally, okay.
I swear, yeah, it's so funny.
I love that.
Yeah.
And is it filled with these fresh markets?
Oh yeah, so there's a market almost every day in Lille maybe even every day. There's one that's about a 5-minute walk from my house, and that's on twice a week. And then there's another one further down, which is really big, and that's like 3 times a week. There's an organic market that's twice a week in the old town. So, I mean, food is such a big scene here, and people are really invested in the whole farm to table, supporting the locals. It's really, really cool.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's wonderful. But one of the things that I love so much about the market is that you can only get, even though it's all year round, you can only get what's in season. So when I first moved here, that was a big eye opener for me, because I would go to the grocery store and I would buy a head of kale and I'd buy berries, and I'd come home and I kind of had this not like regimented, but I always knew roughly what I was going to pick up at the grocery store from week to week. But here in France, it's so different. I mean, you can't get kale all year round. That's something that only grows in the wintertime. And berries, we just got berries like maybe 2 weeks ago. So yeah, it's really cool to see. And they really embrace food of the seasons, and it's so fresh. It's the most delicious. I mean, it's something I really want to take back to me when I move back to Canada, is eating what's in season and really embracing the food that's local, and because it really does taste the best when it's in season and local.
Are you up for a couple of games?
I'd love to.
Okay. First game we've got this or that.
The choice is yours. You can get with this or you can get with that.
Bath or shower?
Oh, bath.
Morning or evening?
Morning.
So morning, I'm with you on that.
I heard actually that you will get up at like 5:30 in the morning.
Yes.
So I'm not that morning of a person. Like I'm thinking like 6:37, I'll get up and do a workout, but like 5:30, that's insane.
It's You're 5:30. Yeah, and then a couple of snoozes. I think I hit the snooze a little bit. I think.
It's probably better.
Dog or cat?
So growing up my whole life, I was a cat person. And when I was a kid, actually, I told my mom that I wanted to live in this like little pink house in Unionville, which is where I grew up, with 17 cats. But since then, I think maybe now I'm more of a dog person because I have a dog now. So I don't know, I guess I'm a little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah.
Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix.
Phone call or you prefer texting?
Phone. I actually like to call people while I'm doing things. Like, I'm not a person who will sit down and like FaceTime and like sit in front of you. I like to be like in the kitchen talking on the phone or taking my dog for a walk. So yeah.
That's why I prefer calling, because I can multitask.
Yeah.
When you're texting, you're kind of stuck and attached to that phone.
Yeah, and you can't really have like real deep conversation through text. Like, it's always like very like surface level.
Okay, this one's good. Water on your toothbrush before toothpaste or after?
Oh my God. Okay, you're gonna die when you hear this. I actually don't put water at all on my toothbrush.
What? Okay, you need to tell me this. You don't.
No, I don't. Like, I just put the toothpaste on dry and I put it in my mouth and I brush.
Well, I guess that solves my problem, because I do a lot of the drooling. And I think it's
Honestly,
I put too much water.
I think that's my problem. I think I'm like hyper drooly or something, and I like have more saliva than the average person because I do not need the water. I can't believe I just admitted that.
I am learning so much about you.
I know, TMI.
Okay, let's talk about Two Spoons, your blog. Where did the name come from?
Okay, so Two Spoons actually, it came from the idea that it's recipes worth sharing. So I don't know if this has happened to you, but it's something that happens to me quite a bit when I go to a restaurant and you're ordering your dessert, and maybe you've decided to order a dessert, but your friend or your husband has passed on it. And when it's a dessert that's really, really good, they always bring 2 spoons because they know that the other person is going to be digging into your dessert. So that's the idea of 2 spoons. It's recipes worth sharing.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that story.
Yeah.
And on your blog, they're vegan and plant-based recipes.
Yeah, they're all vegan and plant-based.
I am not vegan, but I am trying to eat a little more plant-based.
Mhm.
How would I begin?
So I actually love that because I really want my blog to be open to all kinds of eaters. I think it's really important, and I think a lot of the time people who aren't vegan or who aren't plant-based are a little bit intimidated to try out these new foods or even maybe come to a plant-based site because they might not be fully vegan, and there can be a little bit of judgment, and I'm really against that whole mentality. I think that the best way that we can inspire others is through our own actions. And I want it to be kind of a safe space where people can come and they can get inspired, whether they're plant based or not. And just kind of embrace eating more plants in their diet. The whole thing about Two Spoons is that when you're eating plant based, when you're incorporating more plants into your diet, you don't have to compromise on taste. So everything I make, the majority of it is healthy because I like to eat healthy, but I never want someone to compromise on taste. I want it to be delicious and I want them to love every bite.
You have 5 approval stamps, let's say, for each recipe that you select, I guess.
Yeah, so essentially what it is, in fact, I have a lot of people in my life who aren't fully plant-based or vegan. So if you're coming to the website and maybe you aren't into plant-based eating but are looking to explore it and you don't want to dive in headfirst by eating like tofu and tempeh, then you can select the Skeptic Approved section of the blog and it'll take you to all recipes that are very straightforward. They're things that you see kind of in everyday recipes. There's no crazy ingredients. And then I've also got one for newbie cooks. So if you're new to cooking, these are recipes that are super straightforward. They're going to be 30 minutes or less. There's probably 10 ingredients or less and nothing strange. Everything is pronounceable. Everything is easy to find in your grocery store. And then I've also got my Girlfriends Approved, which is recipes that I like to make that are more on the healthy side when I'm having like a girlfriend's weekend. There you're going to find a lot of like green smoothies and chia pudding and all these things that me and my girlfriends love to eat together.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've got my Husband Approved, and those are obviously approved by my husband. So those are usually more hearty dishes because he's really into that. They're more packed with protein. They're going to keep you more full. They're a little bit more indulgent. And then I think the last one is Chef Approved. And those are the ones that if you've got more time, if you're planning on hosting or entertaining and you want to invite your friends over and kind of really impress them with a dish, then there you're going to find your recipes.
I love it. How did you come up with that? I mean, I thought that was brilliant.
Oh, thanks. Honestly, I know that when I didn't have my blog and I was going through these recipes, it would have been something that would have been really helpful to me because there's a lot of stages that you go through as a cook or just like on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes you want something healthier. Sometimes you want something indulgent. Sometimes you want something to impress. And I just thought that would be an easy way for people to navigate the page or the website and find what they're looking for.
I'm Mary Mamalidi, and you're listening to the Kitchen Confession Podcast. Today I'm talking with Hannah Sunderani, a food blogger and creator of Two Spoons. But have you always eaten plant-based?
No, so that's actually something that has come about basically around when I started my blog and a little bit before that. I was kind of in a transition phase, and I sort of wanted to share my learnings and kind of share like my journey in doing that. So it's not something that I've always been. It's sort of been, it was actually quite slow going for me. I mean, I probably stopped eating meat maybe 8 years ago, but fish and cheese was something that was really hard for me to give up. It took me a long time to get there. So it was a slow transition for me. And that's why when people say like, I don't know if I can do it, or like, it's so hard for me to give up cheese, I say, take it at your own pace. And even if you don't get there 100%, every time that you choose to do a plant-based recipe, like that's a step in the right direction. That's a huge win for me, someone coming to my blog and cooking my recipes. So yeah, everyone has their own journey.
Why did you make the change to plant-based?
So I was actually, my journey is kind of a long and complicated story. I guess it depends how far back you want me to go. Because initially, my kind of journey into discovering healthy food and how it impacted my body, that began in my early 20s. And that was actually, it's a bit of a sad story. I was in high school at the time, university at the time, and I lost my boyfriend to cancer. He was my first love and my first boyfriend, and it was just like a really stressful time in my life, and it was super upsetting, of course, and it took a major toll on my health and digestion. And that is really where the world of eating healthy food and how it can impact your body kind of opened up, because I went to go see a lot of GI specialists about the issues that I was having, and all of them just diagnosed me with IBS and gave me pills, and it just wasn't working. That whole lifestyle of taking pills to get better just didn't work for me, and I felt really at a loss, and I ended up turning to food for medicine. I actually did a major elimination diet where I gave up quite a bit. I stopped eating gluten, I stopped eating dairy, no caffeine, no refined sugars, and no refined foods. And I think there was a host of other things. And then slowly I would introduce them back into my diet and see how it affected my body. And from there, I just couldn't believe the impact that food had on my health and digestion. It was like, this was something that I had been struggling with for maybe a year and a half after my boyfriend had passed away. And within maybe a week, I couldn't believe the changes. It was like night and day. And I couldn't believe that it had never been mentioned to me by a doctor. It was always just turning to medicine. But with that said, there was a lot of positive things that came out of that experience, in the fact that I really learned how to cook and to cook to heal my body. So it was a major learning curve in terms of learning different foods and how to cook them, and just kind of exposing myself to all these different ingredients that I had never heard of before. And that is kind of where my cooking journey began.
Okay, we're going to move on to rapid fire. What are the cookbooks you're enjoying right now?
I really like Deliciously Ella's new cookbook. I've also got a friend, Bettina's Kitchen, who just came out with a book called Happy Food, and that one's really beautiful, very colorful.
Favorite ingredient to cook with?
Oh, I really like coconut milk, especially with being plant-based. It's a really nice way to add creaminess to dishes. So a lot of the time, instead of using cream, I'll do a splash of coconut milk.
Favorite snack?
I love hummus and guacamole. And if I'm looking for something sweeter, and I love avocado toast.
Yeah, the avocado, you can't go wrong with that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. And if I'm looking for something sweeter, then I love a healthy muffin. I bake a lot of muffins, often using oats and chia, and I'll sprinkle like some frozen berries on top, like raspberries or blueberries, and bake them in the oven. They're super healthy and deliciously sweet, and yeah, I just love them.
What about music in the kitchen? Yes or no?
Again, it depends on my mood. I actually love to listen to podcasts in the kitchen.
Oh, good answer. Good answer.
Including this one.
Weirdest dish you've made or eaten?
Oh, my gosh, I don't know. I can't think of any like weird dishes I've eaten. The first time I cooked with tempeh, it was a little weird. I didn't cook it. So tempeh is like, you're going to want to cook it because it kind of makes it more, it makes it more palatable, and essentially you should be baking it or frying it. And I didn't know that. And so I just chopped it up and put it in these spring rolls that I was making.
Right.
And I was feeding it to my husband, and I was like, what do you think? And he was like, I don't know. I think I just don't really like tempeh. And I was like, yeah, me neither. And it was totally because I didn't cook it and I didn't marinate it. And yeah.
Oh, my favorite answer is, well, I'm not loving this.
Yeah, I know. He was so polite about it. He's like, well, it's not my favorite.
Oh, it's hilarious. What's the first recipe you can remember trying?
For the blog?
Any recipe,
or just in
general. When
Baking.
You think about, Yeah, it's always baking. Yeah.
No, I said making, not
Oh,
baking.
making.
But we can definitely get into baking, because vegan baking can be difficult. And I think that was like a huge learning curve for me, trying to figure out how to bake vegan. And I remember, maybe one of the first things that I tried doing was brownies. And what I basically did was I took one of my favorite brownie recipes that wasn't vegan, and I tried adapting the ingredients by kind of subbing in different ingredients for vegan versions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nightmare. Like I tried baking these brownies, and I kid you not, all of the flour like melted to the bottom and all the oil stayed on top. So I pulled it out and it
completely
was like
separated.
Yes, totally separated, like a gloppy, gloopy mess.
Mm-hmm.
And I just pitched the whole thing. I was like, I really need to learn how to do this.
It sounds like my attempt in vegan baking. Yeah.
It's definitely into that. That could be a chef approved for sure, because vegan baking takes a while to master for sure.
Definitely. Do you have a signature recipe that you could share with us?
It depends. It depends on the meal. I think signature recipes for breakfast would definitely be a chia pudding, and I have a million ways to make it. I also love doing overnight oats, which is basically chia pudding, but you throw in some oats in there, and it just makes it feel a little bit more comforting and a little bit more filling than chia. I also love doing Buddha bowls. So you'll find quite a few kind of salad Buddha bowl styles for lunches and stuff.
Okay, what would you put in your Buddha bowl?
Oh my gosh. So all the colors of the rainbow.
Yeah.
Like literally, if it's a different color, it's going in there. I love to put a grain in always. So I'll do quinoa or brown rice. And that just really helps fill you up a bit, because I just find if it's a ton of vegetables, you feel full when you're eating it, but then maybe like a couple hours later, you're going to get hungry again. So I really like to throw in some quinoa or some brown rice to fill you up, as well as some kind of protein. So I'll do lentils or black beans or chickpeas or tofu or tempeh, and that's just going to help you full too. And then I always have, for my dressing, I love something creamy. So I actually have a signature citrus tahini dressing that I use in a lot of my recipes. And it's so versatile. And basically what you do is you just mix some tahini with a little bit of lemon juice. And then you add water to thin and a pinch of salt. And it's so tasty. And I love to put that on Buddha bowls.
That sounds so good. Last game, true or false? Lemons contain more sugar than strawberries.
False.
It's true.
No way.
Yes. I was shocked when I read that. Yes.
Oh my God, that is so, I thought maybe just because it's such a bizarre question that it had to be true, but like, I really can't believe that.
Yeah. Next one. An average ear of corn has odd number of rows.
True.
False.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know who went and counted these rows, but someone took the time, and it's about an average ear has about 16 rows of kernel on it.
Oh my gosh, no way.
Yes.
Oh, nature's so cool.
I know. Chocolate was once used for currency.
True.
Yes. Ding, ding, ding. You got that.
Yeah.
The Aztecs used it. Apple trees belong to the rose family.
Oh. True?
Yes.
I thought maybe.
Yeah.
Because of the way they bloom. And also here, it's kind of interesting. Like they have this thing. I don't know what it's actually called, but my mom calls it tree torture. And it's basically, I don't know if you've ever seen a French garden, but they're very immaculate and like very, they love lines and all this stuff. And a lot of the times they'll take rose bushes and kind of pin it to grow in certain forms so that it's very straight and kind of follows this form that they want it to make. And they do it with roses and they do it with apple trees.
Oh, I'm so going to Google that now.
Yeah. I'll send you a photo. My mom calls it tree torture.
Please do. Oh, shoot.
I will. Sure.
Okay. Radishes have more water content than watermelons.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to say false, but I feel like I must be wrong.
It's true.
I can't believe that. That's insane.
Yeah, radish has 95% of water, while a watermelon has about 92. So it's very
joking.
close. No.
Yeah.
But yeah, they do. 95 to 92.
It must be a size thing because like watermelons are so big that they just like feel so heavy and you don't think about it. Like, you know, like a radish will easily fit in your hand. So like it's not something that you think about.
Honestly, I wouldn't have even thought about the water content in a radish. What's a bunch of bananas called?
I don't know.
This one makes me laugh every single time. It's called a hand.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's so funny. It sort of does look like one. If you
It does, right?
Yeah, it's like little fingers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get it, but I would never, I mean, me, it's a bunch of bananas.
Never.
That's it.
Yeah, it's like it's called a bunch of bananas.
This is when I ask all my guests to share a little kitchen confession with us.
Okay. So this is actually a bit of an older story, but it's one that I constantly get teased about, so I thought I'd share it.
Oh, please do.
So actually, it was a few years back. I was having a party for my husband, and I was inviting all of his friends over to celebrate his birthday, and I wanted to do a pizza night. So Mitch and I decided that we were going to have this pizza party, and I was going to experiment making my own pizza dough. And this is something that I wasn't familiar with at the time. I was curious about exploring it, and I thought it would be so impressive, like for me to make my own dough. So I did a bit of research and I found a few recipes, and I took my husband to the grocery store to buy it. It's pretty simple to make pizza dough. It's just flour, water, and yeast, and a bit of salt. And so we're in the flour aisle and we're looking at flour, and I think the recipe called for I think it was maybe 7 cups flour to 3 cups water, or something like that. And I'm in the aisle getting my flour, and I pull out this massive bag of flour, and I'm like, well, I think we should get this one. And Mitch is looking at it, and I swear to God, the size of the bag I picked up would have been enough to feed an entire restaurant. And he was like, yeah, I think that's way too much flour. Are you expecting the whole of the city to come to this party? We're having 10 people. And I was convinced that we needed this much flour. I was like, no, and I was actually worried it wouldn't be enough. So I was like, I really don't want to run out of flour. I want people to have an abundance of pizza. The worst thing we could do is not have enough. And so I convinced him that this would be a good idea. I got home and I started making the pizza dough, and I pulled out the measurements, and I swear I didn't even use a 10th of the flour bag. So I was stuck with this Costco sized flour bag. And all my friends came over and they're like, what? How did you think that this was that you weren't going to have enough? It's just so ridiculously large. And that flour bag lived in our house for a year because I could not finish it. I used it for so many other recipes, and I think we ended up having to throw away half of it because it expired. Oh my God, that's hilarious. So people, you know what I would have done? I would have left anyone that came to visit, you're leaving with a gift bag of flour. I know. Oh my God. I leave it to my husband too, because I tried to hide it in the corner, and he brought it out and was like, look at what Hannah got. It was just so he was doing that throughout the entire year. I am sure of it, because my husband would. Oh yeah, I got teased unmercifully for that. I have since learned to eyeball ratios to know okay, well, this much flour is probably this big of a bag, but at the time I just clearly had no idea. Yeah, at the time it's go big or go home. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Of course. Well, thank you so much. If listeners want to reach out for more information, get a hold of you, where can they find you? What can they do? Where can they look? Yeah, of course. So you can find me on my blog, twospoons.ca, or you can find me on Instagram, twospoons.ca. Excellent. Hannah, thank you so much. This has been so much fun. Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure. Thank you for coming on the show. Oh, thanks, Mary. It's so sweet. I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me.
It's that time. We've reached the end of another show. Be sure to visit kitchenconfession.com for more recipes and foodie finds. I'd like to thank producer and editor Matt Agnew, and I'm Mary Mamalidi. See you at the next episode.